I'm Dr. Shalette Renee Griffin. I'm the founder of Williams Hope Publishing. I'm a Gen X speculative fiction writer who write about systems that suppress the African American voice. This channel focuses on Black writers who use the art of dystopian fiction to protest systems that suppress the African American voice. So if that sounds great to you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. In celebration of Black History Month, I'm creating a 6 video series called The Silent Switch Off, in which I explore why AI images, specifically Black historical images, why at times when you prompt ChatGPT, you often get rejected. So in this video, I'm actually going to talk about how to create AI prompts that do not violate ChatGPT guidelines. And so in this third series, we're going to actually go to ChatGPT and we're going to generate those African American prompts that we discussed in the previous videos. And we're going to really look at why safe prompting is really the best way to go. So you don't have to worry about really having your prompt being rejected by ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so in our last video, we actually discussed how to put together a prompt. We actually learned that there were 6 pieces to put together an ethical prompt: subject, action, environment, style, lighting, and composition. So each of those components were defined. And so now that we understand what each component means and why each component is necessary to in order to generate that nice prompt without without violating chat GPT rules. So now we're going to take that 6 piece prompt and we're actually going to drop it into chat GPT and begin to generate images. All right, so now I just went ahead and I dropped in the chat the lunch counter prompt. So we're going to actually see what happens when we generate. So before I hit the generate button, I just want you guys to see how the 6 prompt framework works. So right in the beginning, it says create a styled black and white documentary style reenactment. So right there we have the style, which is the black and white documentary. And we talk about let's see, with visible film grain. So we're getting very specific about the type of output we want, and that will fall like under the lighting, because we want the image to have a film grain, because we want really to have that older like image. It's not like a modern. We don't want the output to look so modern. So when you add that visible film grain, it really shows ChatGPT that we don't want our output to look like it's like 2026 uh, uh, portrait or a 2026 type of image. And so another key piece, inspired by mid 20th century lunch counter sit-ins. So again, we're telling ChatGPT, that falls on the environment. We're talking about we want our image to look more like a mid 20th century lunch counter. So again, we're not talking about 2026. As far as our subject, and a group of African American college students in their early 20s. So we're being very specific about the subject. And again, we're showing where the subject is. And so the group of college students, they're sitting upright on stools. So again, this is the action that we're telling ChatGPT. So these African American students, the type of action, they're going to be sitting upright on stools at the lunch counter. And so that falls into the action part of our framework. Their posture is calm and resolute. Okay, so now this is the action. So what is the subject doing? And so the African American students, their posture is calm, they're resolute. Hands rested, folded on the counter. So this is all about action. What is the subject doing in the prompt. We're talking about their expressions are composed and controlled. So this is all detailed of the action. So that's why it's very important, when you put together a prompt, we need the subject, you got to have the action, the environment, the style, and also we talk about the lighting. We want the output to have a grainy type of feel to it. And this whole piece, and I'll continue to read the rest of the prompt. Behind the counter, a server stands stiffly with crossed arms. Again, body language tense. So we're describing the action of, and it is interesting because the subject is the African American students, but also the counter server is also a subject as well. And you're describing the action of the subject. And clearly, based on how we're describing with the arms crossed and the body language tense, we can already know that this person is not happy. Okay, in the background, white patrons watch with visible agitation. Listen to the type of words they're using. Some turned away, others leaning forward. All right, so you're describing the action. At the far edge of the frame, uniformed police officers approach the entrance. The camera is positioned. Now, this is the composition because we're talking about distance. The camera is positioned at a counter height, emphasizing stillness and restraint. Lighting is flat and even mimicking mid-century press photography. Okay, so this is all about lighting, style, to make sure that the image generates an image that's reflective of the time. And our figures are entirely fictional, no modern elements. So that's very important that each of your prompt has at the end, our figures are entirely fictional. And that's very important because without that, ChatGPT is going to assume that you want something that's modern, and more likely it's not going to generate. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually hit prompt, and we're going to see what it generates. All right. All right. So it's very important to have all six of those frameworks: the subject, action, environment, style, lighting, and composition. And as far as the order, as you saw, this particular prompt, the order was actually the style, the environment and the style was actually the beginning. And the subject is always not too far, but you want the subject to be close to beginning as possible. Okay, so this is the image that generated. And so here, okay, we talked about you got the server, with the hands folded. You have the police officers that's approaching, and you have the subject, which is the college students. Their face is just, resolute. And I mean, this is basically an image that you would almost look really authentic, pretty much. And, if you show someone who grew up in this era, they probably question, is this a real photo or not? And so that's why it's very important to, for me, I always let folks know, when I generate, especially African American images, I always put in the bottom of the photo that is ChatGPT, because I'm not trying to fool anybody. I just, I want to convey that this image supports what I'm writing, but I mean, I'm not trying to fool folks. I mean, I just want to create history, and that's what I want to do. So this is, we got the prompt, and really what makes this prompt works, one, the stillness, the stillness and the posture, it communicates resistance, and it communicates resistance without confrontation, and you have the authority figures, which are the cops in the back, They're present, but they're not centered. The police officers are not the center of this piece. It's mainly the students. Again, there's a lot of tension that's conveyed in this piece, but it's not violence. And of course, we know with the lunch counter sit-in protest, we know it was violent. We know it's violent, but you don't have to depict the violence in the image, because if you try that, ChatGPT is going to it's not going to generate the image. And really, what's great about this image is that it really prevents you being so direct. It's not a direct enactment. It preserves it preserves the truth without being so direct. And so really that's the beauty of really just creating a prompt that's ethically put together and using language that ChatGPT is willing to use without violating its guidelines. And of course, as a writer, you're able to get your point across with the image to support your article or the story or whatever the piece that you're writing. So this is the beauty of being able to put together a prompt without having ChatGPT uh, put an X, on the prompt because it violate guidelines. And so we actually go ahead and we'll actually go ahead and generate another image. All right, so now I went ahead and I dropped in a prompt. And so now we're going to go and let's look at the prompt for a second before we generate. But here, uh, the first sentence, create a cinematic paparazzi style documentary reenactment. And so right now, the first piece in the prompt, we're talking about the style. We're talking about the style that the prompt is going to give us. And we're talking about it being a reenactment. So again, this is not about being direct. This is about just giving us the feel of the real thing. So the reenactment set inside a large indoor arena during a national political convention. So we're being very general about the setting. So is that a political convention? And so we're talking about the place. So basically talking about the setting. So that's the environment. So the first line, we have the style, we have our style and we have the our environment. So those are the two pieces we see right in the first sentence. And then the second sentence, the scene is framed from a backstage. So again, we're talking about the environment, and we're also just talking about so basically the environment obscured by heavy curtains. So that's the extra details. And so at the end of the second sentence is where we really talk about the subject. And in the foreground, a silhouetted African American woman in her mid 50s. And so this is the subject that's going to be in our prompt. Moments before stepping into the big arena lights. And probably at this point, you probably know what this image is going to generate, which makes it so fun. One of my favorite images, actually. She wears a tailored suit. Her posture is composed and deliberate. One hand lifting in acknowledgement, the other brushing the curtain side. So we're talking about the action. What is the subject doing? So the subject, she has her hand on the curtain, and it says she has her let's see, her posture is going to be one hand lifting in acknowledgement. She got one hand lifted in acknowledgement, the other hand is brushing the curtain. And so all of that is feeding into the emotion of the piece. Beyond her, a vast crowd fills the arena. And so again, we're still talking about the environment. Faces blurred into emotion. And that's very important because again, we don't want to be direct. Being too direct, ChatGPT doesn't really like that, especially when you talk about faces. And so flags and signs are suggested through color and movement. And so that's all talks about, that's like the lighting, all about the lighting. And you got the composition when you're talking about, let's see, let's see, composition. We're talking about the distance. So creating sharp highlights and dramatic contrast. And so all of the pieces that we talked about, the subject, the action, the environment, the style, lighting, and composition is what makes this prompt very strong. So now we're just gonna go ahead and generate it and just see what we have. All right, so just taking a few seconds just to generate. All right. Hopefully you can guys can see this. I got the little Google Meet thing is in the way. All right, so we're just taking a moment. And so again, it's just so important to have all six of those pieces together in your framework so you can really create the best image you can without violating GPT guidelines. All right, here we go. Yeah, now we can. All right, I couldn't see it before. It was so far down, I couldn't see the image being created. And so, but yeah, I'm all about just creating images that, you don't have to be so direct because really the environment and the environment could really speak to the emotion of the piece. So without going into detail about how the person looks, um, anger, because as we said in a couple of videos, you can describe someone being angry without saying that they're angry. And so, it's continue to generate. Right. And so that prompt, it was a lot of information in the prompt. So sometimes it takes GPT just some time to process all the information that's in the prompt. But again, as I keep saying, it's very important to have all those pieces in your prompt because you want to make sure that Chat GPT creates the output that you need to support whatever piece that you're writing. All right. So here is our image. All right, and you probably can guess who we're trying to portray here. But it's interesting because with this type of prompt, you can actually take like the subject, you can tweak it to make it a male. You could, do so many things with this prompt. And really, in our next video, we'll talk about transferring uh, pieces of the prompt to generate other images beside African American. But clearly, what we're trying to generate here is the former vice president of the United States. That's basically what we're generating here. And so again, it speaks to that without saying who it is, and that's really the goal when you want to prompt. I mean, you don't have to specifically say who it is, but pretty much based on the environment, based on you can see there's the American flag in the back. This person's coming on the stage, so clearly it's someone of importance, and someone can pretty much draw that. Pretty much the image is supposed to represent a reenactment of the 2024 national convention. And so that's what this piece conveys. And so again, when you put together a prompt, you want to make sure all those pieces are there to support the story that you want. So we're going to go ahead and create another image. So here is the second prompt. So we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to generate this. And this particular prompt is very similar to the first one. Okay, create a cinematic documentary inspired reenactment. It's almost the same as the previous prompt, but we went ahead and changed the characteristics of the subject. And basically, if you read through the prompt, the environment has changed and the style has changed as far as the type of realism that we want in the style. This one is not so much like a documentary. This is more of a realism because it's cinematic, like the previous one. The lighting, let's see again, but almost similarities is that it's partially obscured by the heavy curtains, similar to the previous photo. So we're going to go ahead and generate this one, but let me just read the prompt out loud before I generate. Let's see here. You guys can't see the whole prompt is cut off. So let me go ahead and just read. Okay. Create a cinematic documentary inspired reenactment set on a November night in a large urban park with dynamic film grain and high contrast lighting. The scene is framed from backstage, partially obscured by by heavy curtains. In the foreground, a silhouetted African American man in his late 40s stand moments before stepping into a bright stadium lights. His posture is composed and contemplative. Can't read today. One hand raised in a restrained wave, the other resting at his side. Beyond him, a vast crowd fills the park. Faces blurred into motion, hands lift, flags and signs are suggested through movement rather than legible detail. Camera flashes erupt intermittently against the dark sky, creating sharp highlights and contrast. The focus remains on atmosphere and collective movement, collective emotion rather than individual identity. And so again, I was so focused on that collective emotion, and really the focus is more on the atmosphere and emotion. That's why, I always stress that your environment can pretty much stress the emotion that's happening in the piece. So let's go ahead and generate here. Whoop, let me just retry again. All right, so what went wrong here? Oh, all right. So this, I don't know if this is ChatGPT not able to generate. Well, let's try this again, or something I just did. All right, so I don't know what happened there. Yeah, that was weird. All right. So, all right. So again, just keep, repeating myself. It's just, very important just to have all six of those framework. Okay. So the image we have here, okay, obviously someone of importance. And as you probably could guess, this is actually the former President Obama's November 2008 victory speech in the I think it's called the Grant Park somewhere. Yeah, Grant Park. I think it's Grant Park in Chicago. So this is the reenactment of that. And so again, the similar to the former VP prompt, basically we just switched out male for female instead of having the for VP Harris, the environment was inside. For former President Barack Obama, the image is outside. So you can take a prompt and just switch out the environment. You can switch out the subject. And, that's the beauty of having a prompt. So you can just go ahead and switch out certain aspects of it because, as you can see, when you switch out different aspects of it, you'll get a different type of prompt. And so again, if you're writing a piece on a former president, you can put together that image to support your writing. And again, this is really not about being direct because, really silhouetted type of pieces being unnamed, to me that speaks volumes, because you don't have to be so direct. The backstage framing, it just avoids really naming the actual place and actual making an image like the actual footage, because you don't want that either, because you can also get into trouble as well. Again, you have the crowd, the obscure faces, all of those things really speaks to the emotion of the piece. And so that's really why I'm just such an advocate about putting together prompts that are uh, ethically sound, and really, reenactment to me is something that, I mean, you can do on a safe side without violating chat gpt. And so again, the key, if you look through the prompts, all of them have, our figures are entirely fictional, they're reenactments, those, the words inspired by, those are the types of phrases you have to put into the prompt, because if not, chat gpt is going to assume that you're looking for the actual piece, and it's going to reject it. So that's, two of the prompts that I just wanted to share with you guys. But again, it's all about just putting together those 6 pieces, and knowing which really knowing which parts of the framework where you want to, put in the back or put to the front. And again, because all of that, the position of the piece of the framework will also affect the output. So, I'm just glad that I was able to at least put in the prompts to show you, and really what a sound uh, indirect framework really looks like. All right, folks. I hope that that was educational as far as seeing how the the ethical prompts actually work without being so direct. And as we saw with the first piece with the with VP Harris, we weren't direct. We didn't call out and say who it was, but the piece was enough where you can tell, who the person we were trying to say without coming out and saying it. And so when you're writing a piece and you have that image, I mean, the audience will know right away, even probably before you read it in your title, who you're talking about. And so to me, the 6 framework, it works so great because you're able to get that rich image that you want when you use all 6 of those elements. Because really, if you miss one, or you don't really put all that information in a prompt, you're not going to get that image that you need. And again, it's all about being, ethical, because you want to be able to, generate the image successfully without getting the X from ChatGPT. And so again, just being able to prompt and take one component out and switch it with something else, or switching the order, that's something that you can actually do. You can pretty much do that with almost all your images. In fact, the next video, our last segment, will actually talk about the transferable skills, where we'll take a prompt and we'll actually switch the order. We may have the subject third, or we have the style first, or have the action first, and we can see how just switching around the order of components would generate a totally different image. So we'll do that for our final video. So I hope this was a blessing to you. I hope you were able to learn something from it. And of course, I sure did when I start studying ChatGPT and how to generate black images without violating ChatGPT. So again, thank you guys for sticking around, and I will see you guys in the next video.